Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast 123 Eyes on Me. Here we talk about all things education, what's working, what's not, and ways to improve the system. As always, the goal here is very simple: help the kids succeed. My name is Aaron, aka Mr. Jackson, and today I have the pleasure of speaking with Representative Ashton Clemmons. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having me. I'm Ashton Clemmons, a state representative in North Carolina. I represent North and Northeast Greensboro. But in my heart, I am an educator. I was a kindergarten, first and second grade teacher in public schools in North Carolina, and then a school principal for 8 years at two different schools. One was a turnaround school in High Point, and then at a magnet school in Greensboro. Then I worked at central office and got my doctorate in education. All of that was before I then ran for the General Assembly. So I actually now work at one of our local universities with pre-service teachers. I teach Clinical 1 and Clinical 2, working with student teachers. So my heart is and always will be as an educator, and I try to take that to the North Carolina General Assembly. And I have twin boys who are just started second grade and a daughter who starts sixth grade in a couple of weeks.
That's amazing. Yeah, I love how you have a plethora of experience in different walks of life when it comes to your career options, and I love versatility.
Yes, they're all good experiences for sure. I miss being in school, so I do a lot of volunteering at my kids' schools and things like that. But I have learned a lot from all of the different steps along the way.
That's amazing. All right. Thanks for that little introduction. To start things off, I like to begin the conversation with a game. So it's called One for One. I simply say a word and you reply with one word that comes to mind. And it doesn't have to be the first word, so no pressure.
Okay.
All right. The first one is school.
All right. Children.
Second one is students.
Energy.
I like it. Third one is money.
Potential.
And then the last one is time.
Critical.
That one's really good. I usually hear like management or limited. So critical definitely goes hand in hand with those.
Yeah, management came to mind, but then it's like such a critical resource when we're thinking about learning for children. So
Yeah, that one's really good.
that's what I went with.
And then for money, what made you say that?
Well, at the state level, we just talk a lot about the investments or lack of investments of financial resources. And so, how much we're willing to invest in our schools and in education in totality is directly linked to the opportunities we can provide for children and their families. And so I think when we have resources, it leads to greater opportunity. And when we choose not to invest those resources, it decreases opportunity. So those two are quite linked in my mind. Particularly at the state level, that's so much of the discussion is about our budgeting and investments decisions. So I think I just tie closely the resources that we do or do not have with the opportunities we are or are not providing.
I agree. Yeah, when you said potential, that spoke, volumes really, because as you mentioned it, depending on what people do with that money, with what you said, potential, it'll really let us know where they will go and then how they're going to go about that. Will it really help us? Will it hinder us? So I like how you said potential and not just, oh, we need this. This is a great thing, because it depends on who's holding that money and who's spending it, not just the money itself.
That's right. Yes.
What is one thing that you really enjoy when you were working in the system?
Well, I mean, my favorite moments as a teacher or as a school principal are when you have a moment and you realize a child has made progress that you got to be a part of. And I think those are small moments, really, but that they add up over the course of a school year or the course of an educational career to be the reasons that we really are in and stay in schools. So this is a small one, but when I was a first grade teacher in Durham Public Schools, I had a little boy in my class, and we were working a lot on like noticing things and not just like trying to help them be more aware just as people, like noticing things, not just just kind of passively going through the world. And he came to school one Monday and he was like, Miss Wheeler, I noticed a lizard that was changing colors this weekend. And, that's to me, an aha moment that like he was noticing something in the world he would have overlooked and did that because of me as a teacher. And any of those moments are, when a kid learns to read the first time or write or is proud of themselves for doing something. Those are the best parts of being an educator to me.
Hmm. Yeah, I reside with that completely. When I teach students, I was always not a huge fan of it. I know I need to practice patience, but
Right.
what really gets me going is when I see that growth and that progress in them. Whenever you see that spark, you see that light bulb, they took something that I taught them and they're going to run with that. I personally teach to spark interest and to spark creation.
Yes, I think any moment where we can get people thinking or doing something bigger or better is what we look for as educators.
Hmm. There are a lot of pros in the system, and then as we both know, there are a lot of cons as well.
Yes.
Yeah. So no matter whether you were, actually teaching in the field or even what you're doing right now as a representative, what's a con that you've noticed?
Yes. The thing I would like to change if I had a magic wand is the way that we hold schools accountable in North Carolina.
Hmm.
I think that our school accountability structures, the assessments we use, the what is weighted, and then so much of what schools do that matters for children, but also matters for our long term economic success for our state is not reflected in this accountability system. And then we make all these decisions based on this accountability system about teachers and schools and money. And we're using a faulty system that isn't really measuring what we believe to be high quality, comprehensive education. And then we make faulty decisions because of that faulty system. And
Mhm.
so I would love to see us have an accountability system that measures a lot of things that are critical to student success, like some states measure if students are working when they're in high school, that's a life opportunity that matters for their success, or if they have an apprenticeship, or if they're involved in sports. There are ways that accountability systems can motivate different things, and our system really mostly measures whether we get a certain number of kids from level 2 to level 3 on a multiple choice test. And education, as you were just describing, so much bigger than that.
Mhm, definitely. Yeah, because when you say this, the first thing I thought was standardized testing versus project-based assessments. We probably are thinking about 2 different things. So can you explain what you mean by that accountability? What would you Yeah, give me an example of what you mean by that.
Well, I mean, in our state, we give schools letter grades,
Mhm,
and the factors that go into those letter grades are very limited. So, in an elementary school, we give third, fourth, and fifth graders an EOG. That's a multiple choice test. And the majority of that school's accountability grade is what percentage of kids are level 3, which is a random line that's made each year where we're determining proficiency, quote unquote. But a lot of times our level 3 is you get 40% of the test right. And then, like, is that really what we would say is proficient? And is that test even an appropriate measure of comprehensive reading and literacy skills? I would argue no. Reading 8 passages and answering questions, there's a lot more to reading than that, right? That we would determine successes. But
sure.
and so, we have some schools where a lot of kids are already going to be a level 3 no matter what teachers do that year.
Mhm,
And so, my daughter is a great reader. And so she was going to be a level 3, 3 or higher if she sat and did nothing for a year.
mhm,
And so our accountability system doesn't motivate teachers to go above and beyond for her. Now, great teachers do that, of course, but that's not reflected in the system. The same is true if you have a child who is coming significantly below grade level for lots of different reasons. You can make tremendous progress. And if it doesn't get to that level 3 benchmark, you know, their growth is reflected at such a smaller percentage than the proficiency. And so, we boil this complex thing of teaching and learning down to how many kids can get to this random line of quote unquote proficiency when there's so much more that we should be talking about.
Of course, schools started to distinguish students within a class. They used to separate them based off of their intellect. Like can't think of it like AIG in middle school, and then students who were maybe behind or just borderline average.
Mm-hmm.
But then they finally started to mix them together. And that's hard for a lot of teachers because, okay, I need to focus on little Jimmy over here who's struggling with this, which is perfectly fine. But I need to give him that attention that he needs. But on the other side of the classroom, I have like two other students who are above. So I can either have an assistant come in here, but we may be short staffed. It'd be better if they were just in a class of their own. What do you think is the best option?
Yeah, well, I mean, educational research is actually pretty clear that all students learn better in a heterogeneously mixed learning environment. So, I one of my sons is excellent at math, super high flying at math, but would be an average reader, and so like he needs to be in an environment where he can be challenged at different levels based on the subject that we're talking about. Some kids are incredible science students because they're super curious, but they don't have the skill set to do well at reading. So, like, kids have strengths and weaknesses in different areas, and only by having all different levels together can kids naturally get to experience their own strengths and weaknesses with other students. So I think certainly that's pretty decisive in the educational learning research that having them together is best. And we do need to support teachers to be able to meet diverse needs in their classrooms.
When it comes to having, those teachers, whether it be, first 5 years of their career versus veterans, a lot of them do feel like, schools are short staffed and they're having to do extra work because a lot of people are leaving the field, others aren't coming in anymore. Do you think that it would be better to start not splitting up classes based on their intellect? Because you already said that, the study already shows that heterogeneous classes are better. Do you think, I personally believe that we need to have smaller classrooms, but of course that's an issue because teachers are leaving the field and others are just not coming in.
Mm-hmm.
What else do you think we can do to really keep teachers in the field and to encourage others to, become teachers?
We ought to be valuing them as professionals. And in North Carolina, we've really gone the wrong way on whether we actually treat and care about our educators as true professionals. So some of the ways we've done that is we've gotten rid of longevity pay, which decreases the likelihood teachers will stay in the profession. We've gotten rid of master's pay, which decreases the likelihood that educators are going to go and get their master's degree to better themselves and be better informed for their classrooms.
Mm-hmm.
We've taken away retirement benefits recently so that teachers who, if you were going to have a profession as a teacher for 30 years in North Carolina, you no longer would be able to have retirement once you retire from that profession, which, think about all the professions that we have where that's part of your retirement, and we've taken that away from education. We've made a pay scale, so in addition to needing to invest holistically in our pay scale and pay teachers more, our pay scale does not increase teacher pay from years 15 to 24. So are we really caring about it as a profession if we keep the same pay for a decade of our most highly, the people that have been in the profession longest? No. And then, we've seen in the past year to year and a half, we are actually, we being the current leadership, but, certainly not me, but in the past year and a half to 2 years, educators have literally been weaponized, right? And we are making it seem like they are out there hammering kids with all these issues. And so now, there are bills across our country and in our state that are really penalizing teachers, making them post every single book that they read or unable to talk about anything that causes discomfort. Like we are systematically deprofessionalizing the field and creating environments where teachers are somehow seen as the bad guys, which what I see is every single day teachers are pouring their hearts into these children, my own personal children and children across our state. So we have a lot of work to do to support educators in North Carolina.
Definitely. Yeah, and like I mentioned earlier, I really love how you were part of the system. You're not, in the field anymore, but you're still using your tools now and your expertise to make a change. What is it that you really want to change, like within a year or 2 tops? And what do you believe are the tools that you need to make it happen?
Well, I really believe that we need a balanced legislative leadership in North Carolina that values our traditional public school system. I don't think we have that
Mhm.
right now. And so, I am focused on how do we build that by with our elections, having more candidates elected that do support our traditional public schools and believe we should be investing in them. And then also working with people that are elected to help them understand the role of our public schools as a key infrastructure in the economic development of our state. So I think that's kind of twofold. And then, as I mentioned, I really think we can and should be making progress on changing our accountability system. And so there's a working group from our state superintendent that is working on some alternatives for our accountability system. And I am always pushing that, trying to push that forward. So I would love to see us make some progress there as well.
Mhm. Yes. Accountability, that's very crucial. But then I also think of accessibility. I think it's very important because you mentioned a lot of people just don't know the ins and outs or the cons, would stick with cons when it comes to education system. People don't vote because they don't know who to vote for. They don't know where to look. So where do you think is the best way, or where do you think that money can be put in order to let those voters know, okay, this is where I need to go. This is how I can do it. This is all of the information I need to make, a sound decision.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that the best voter resource dollars are spent paying people to canvass and actually knock on doors of voters. There's a lot that's in technology, certainly, but as far as getting, people who are really just doing their best to get from day to day, actually knowing elections next week, here's where you need to go. I think knocking on doors, meeting people at their homes or apartments or even workplace is the best resource. And then you can hear directly from people, what do you care about? Why does it matter? This is why you should go and vote. So I think it's hard work, but I think that's the most important work.
I do believe that it is hard, yes. Kind of a bonus question. Do you have a memorable moment of someone you've went to and maybe had a longer conversation than you anticipated based on their view?
Yeah, all the time. I do, I've canvassed and some of my past students have been on the other side of the door.
Wow.
So that's been fun where people are like, Miss Week. Yeah. So, those are memorable to me. Certainly, I had one conversation where their man said, it ended with, well, you and I probably don't agree, but I can tell you care.
Mhm.
And so, I think there are many, actually, the best moments in politics are those one on one conversations, in my opinion.
Definitely, I agree. Yeah, because it creates that relationship and you really have someone,
Yeah.
in your corner. And that's how I believe policies and legislature laws and bills are effective because we have more people on the same page, which goes to my last point when it comes to uniform and unity. I believe that's the number one issue within the education system because we're just not all on the same page. As I mentioned, the different walks of life,
Yeah.
someone who was never a teacher can't say, "Oh, let's raise teacher pay." But someone else who has been a teacher and they're at that round table to vote for that policy or that bill to be passed to raise teacher pay higher than, I don't know, 5-6%, whatever it may be. Um, if we have more people who actually have been in those shoes or who just understand, as you mentioned, if we enlighten them and give them the information to let them know, hey, this has been an issue for a while. When you have the personal connection with that person, they'll look at that issue differently and they'll be alongside you. I believe when we all focus on one issue at a time, things will really change a lot quicker than they have been. I believe unity is the biggest issue. So I love how you mentioned going from door to door because that's how you meet them where they are, and you're not just handing them a pamphlet. You're telling them something, but you're really listening and letting them talk to you so you can really see where they're at.
Yes. And, we need people to hold elected officials accountable for solving problems. There are too many people in office who would rather foment problems and create issues and actively do not solve problems because they think in the long run it helps them hold on to or gain more power.
Mm,
And we need people on both sides of the aisle that are have voters who are saying to them, we want to vote for you if you actually try to help us. We do not want to vote for people that are just creating problems.
right.
So I hope that like the collective we and democracy can push for more people that are solving problems instead of people just, playing to our base instincts and trying to create issues and division.
Yeah, I love that. 'Cause it's really good to know that a lot of people don't come out and especially, in positions that you're in right now, a lot of people don't come out and say that, like there's a lot of turmoil and things of that nature that we need to, snuff out and really not even snuff out, but really just, change their mindset and hope that they understand where we're coming from. It's not just about self gain. Stop, worrying about yourself. When we really love one another and we put ourselves in each other's shoes, that changes perceptions, their mindset, and then hopefully there's a lot of power in perception. But yeah, as much as I want to, we're all busy. We have things to do. So I'll cut it short. Yeah.
Perfect.
Let me know if you're available for a part two.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Thanks so much for having me.
Of course. Well, I always like to end off with any words of encouragement or advice that you may have for the listeners.
Well, I would tell any listener who needs to feel inspired about why we should continue to fight for our public schools to do what I did when I was a principal and needed to be inspired, and that's to go sit in kindergarten. And if you look at 5-year-olds and really have a lens that whether these 5-year-olds, all of them succeed is all of our collective responsibility, there's no way to not want to make it better. So for me, it always comes back to thinking about our kids and what our job is and how can we make
Love
progress.
it. I love it. All right. Well, Ashton, it was a pleasure speaking with you, and I appreciate the wisdom and perspective you've enlightened me with today.
Yeah, well, it's good to talk to you, and I look forward, happy to come back another time.
All right. Thank you. You take care, okay?
Thank you. Okay, bye.